actually hit the go live button. That was good. And good morning, Alex, down in the chat. So, Chris, as I was telling you about, how many players have you killed in a single encounter without a TPK?
How many have I killed? 4. Not a TPK. So
it wasn't a TP, but you had 4 players and 4 deaths. No.
Hang on a sec.
Okay. So what just happened to me last week is that I was running a Delta Green game, which is kind of a deadly system to begin with. But the players, there was 4 of them, 4 characters go into a room, 2 die from this Hound of the Angles, a Lovecraftian monster that appears in like every corner of like a room. So like where a wall meets the ceiling, 2 walls meet together. And so it just kind of like appears. The only way to protect yourself is basically be in a room without angles or corners. So basically like a spherical structure. And it's this monster is even isn't even written by Lovecraft. It's written by a contemporary of his. And so basically it appears, it obliterates 2 of the people inside of 2 rounds. And then the other 2 players were able to survive because they did not attack the creature and just let it go.
Give me a second.
Are you having technical difficulties? That's okay. I can just talk for hours and hours.
I'm getting all of your voices coming in twice on a time delay. So
that's weird. Close YouTube.
I did.
Oh, well, that sucks for you.
Okay.
That just means double the love from my voice, Chris. And I think that's what everyone could ever hope for in their life, is to hear my voice twice with like a 1-second delay.
I know, that's why I was so excited that this was going on. But anyways, I'll fix it. So that sounds great for you and horrible for the players, because I know that deep down, even though you say you don't, you love killing players.
I don't feel bad if I kill a player. They knew the what would happen if they attacked and decided to try and kill a monster. And that's my monster. And I'm very, very protective of my monsters.
Well, that's a good way to phrase it. You don't like killing characters. You just get angry when they kill your monsters.
Yeah. I didn't spend hours picking out the correct monster for someone to fight and then just watch the monster die. I root for the monsters.
Great. Well, welcome to the live stream, everybody.
No.
Steven likes to kill characters. And, well, I'm sorry. Steven loves his monsters.
Yes. I just don't care about the characters. The true heroes of the story are the monsters you kill along the way or something.
Nah, you know what? Sometimes I can get behind that. Anyways, so anything fun and exciting going on this week? Have you watched, has there been another episode of your Dining in Dungeon?
Delicious in Dungeon? Sadly, I have not gotten a chance to watch another episode. And eventually I'm going to finish watching Yu Yu Hakusho. Yes, there's 3 episodes out. So eventually I'm going to also finish watching Yu Yu Hakusho, the live action version, which I'm excited for. But also, who has the time to just watch TV? Yeah, I know.
No, I really don't. I really, really don't. Well, that's good. I still haven't checked it out. I am almost done with the show I'm watching right now. I finished The Brother's Son, which was actually really good. They set it up for another season, but it's on Netflix. So, they sort of like throw stuff at dartboards and decide what they're going to, play next. I hope they do. I really hope they do. I did see that, and it's been actually announced for a while, but they are making another season of Alice in Borderland, which is a fantastic. Oh, you'd love it. Watch that show.
Okay. Is it like Tin Man, where it's like you take Wizards of Oz and then you like redo it with like a grittier beat?
No, it's
Alan Cummings was in it. It was very good.
It's people are transported to, I guess, like a parallel world, and they basically are fighting People that have been there before them that have gained power. You have to get cards. You're basically looking for a full deck. So like you're fighting against like the second season, like you have to fight like the Jack of Spades or like the Queen of Hearts. And as you can imagine, they're pretty insanely powerful. And it's a lot, it's it's not animated, but there's a lot of fighting and a lot of killing. And if you don't like things that are subtitled, it's not gonna be for you, but subtitles don't ruin it. It's pretty fantastic. Dude, both seasons were impressive. Good character development. I liked it.
I'll add it to my very, very long list of shows to watch. And it's only getting longer. But now we've got to give a chance for some people to join. Let's go ahead. Oh, good morning, Katie. We can get into our main topic, which is the X cards, along with other safety tools. So, Chris, you were interested in talking about the X card. Do you want to start us off?
Well, my post this week was on the X card. I'm surprised you didn't. Oh, wait, you don't read my post, so never mind.
I don't know how to read.
Yeah, I know.
I just know how to write. I don't know how to read, though.
You have the best words just on paper. Yeah. So X card, it's been a while. I know a lot of people will know what X card is because it's been around since 2013. Created by John Stavropoulos. Yeah, go ahead. You can pronounce it.
John Stavropoulos, according to Wikipedia.
He was a game organizer, role-playing game organizer in New York, and doing a lot of live shows. He decided that with his experiences and the feedback he got from the people that were playing, that there'd be something that would be good to. A lot of people had concerns when they signed up and playing with like total strangers, which I get. They were like, what if we're to start talking about mass murder? I don't really feel comfortable with that, but they're talking about wiping out an entire town.
Yeah. My game of My Little Pony, I don't want to murder people. I want to make friendship.
Right. So he decided, hey, this was a good thing to do. He, it's a Creative Commons share alike license. So a lot of games, since they've been developed, then you have this right in their rules. All you got to do is credit him, and you can incorporate it right into your whatever game you're developing, or if you write an adventure that has some pretty gory or not necessarily taboo, but dark subjects, maybe it's a good idea to put it in there. One of the other things I found interesting when he created this was a big feature of it was part of the power dynamic at the table, because players would feel hesitant because who controls the table? I mean, who's the king at the table, Stephen? You should know this.
Me.
Yeah, exactly. It's the GM. So a lot of the sorry, that's just to be annoying to Stephen, and I promise I will stop.
Stop tapping your table.
So since the GM controls what happens at the table, they're the one who comes up with a campaign. They're the ones who are raising the issues that are taking place, and they're the ones that are going to basically decide how it's resolved, especially back before there was a kinder, gentler world and we were aware of these things. A player may be hesitant to voice their opinion, and even if they did, the GM could just be like, hand wave and keep going. So this was a good way to set up a system where everyone would follow the same rules, so that if you felt uncomfortable, you could signal it without having to give any more information and move on. How's that?
Yeah.
So, Stephen, what exactly is X card?
I mean, you just so succinctly described it. Basically, you just have a notebook card, and you draw an X on it. And anyone can, if they're uncomfortable for whatever reason, can tap the card, basically signaling that, hey, I don't like what's going on. I'm not feeling comfortable with this. It's time to can we like skip ahead to a scene, and ideally people around the table understand like, hey, we should just skip to the next scene. let's not dwell on it. You're not supposed to like then like demand to know why someone is asking you to skip something, because that's not polite. Maybe they're not ready to talk about trauma in their life. Maybe they're not ready to talk about their triggers. Like you can always, if you're confused as to why they're asking to skip ahead a scene, so that in the future, you could always later on take the person aside as like the game master and just being like, hey, can you give me just like a brief understanding of why you wanted to skip ahead? Like, what was the topic that, made you hit the X card? And, I think a lot of people, when they first hear about an X card, kind of find it weird, maybe because they're trying to put it into the context of them playing games all the time and like with the same group of people, and they know the same group of people. But as you said about like its history, it's written by a guy who organizes a lot of games, and so it makes a ton of sense to use in like a con sense, because I've played tons of games at cons. I've run a lot of games at cons, and it's just like some people are not good at what we call social cues, or like trying to like shove like R-rated themes into this PG-13-ish game I'm trying to run for, a general audience, and no one wants to hear about their
cutting the hands off of Gary the Knoll over and over and over and over again so that you can get past the level.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just re-listening to that Dungeon Crawler Carl. There's something that brings me joy. We're definitely going to talk about that sometime soon. Almost done with the last book. I got an hour and a half left. So close. Anyways, so there that begs the question. You are a forever GM unless you feel like torturing somebody and want to say, hey, I'm going to play a kobold that is a bard that plays the bagpipes. Have you used X card and let's say, all right. So have you used it, and what situations have you used it?
Recently I used it when I was trying to start a new group, just, getting people's kind of, if I don't know everyone in the group, then yeah, I think using an X card's a great opportunity to just make sure everyone's feeling kind of comfortable. Or and I'll sometimes use it at a convention, though most often I don't use the X card. I use a different safety tool, which I'm not sure how familiar you are with it, which is lines and veils, which is basically what are your lines? What are lines that we should not cross? And then what are your veils? Veils are things that we, fade to black on, PG-13, whenever someone's about to spend some quality time with someone else, it fades to black. Whenever, and like we don't in like a line could be for like PG-13 movies, like you don't get to say the F-bomb more than once. After that, you're going to cross the line, you're going to get jacked up into an R-rated movie. You can only show certain amounts of things. And so, that's kind of been my go-to strategy, is lines and veils, where it's like, hey, if you have any lines or veils, you can either, if this is like a group, I'll tell them like, just message me, just tell me what you're uncomfortable with, things that you can, kind of gloss over. And ideally I'll do like a Google Drive where it's a survey, and then it's kind of anonymized. So then people feel more comfortable explaining like, hey, what are the things you really don't like? What are things that, you would rather we avoid? And I find that gives me a little bit more, deeper understanding of the table and kind of what are topics I should avoid, because then I get to know ahead of time, instead of the X card, which is kind of more at like impromptu, where like it gets tapped, and then even like the best improv person who's told like skip a scene, like they got to take a moment to like compose themselves and like mentally move on from whatever train of thought they had.
Okay, two questions on that.
Yeah.
How did it work out? Do you feel with this new group? I was an invite to this new group. We'll get into that off.
I don't like you.
Yeah, I know. All you do is make me work. I'm just your personal servant. But how do you feel it worked? And question on this system. I've read about it. I haven't actually used it in a game. So this seems like something that is done pre-game, like a session zero kind of situation.
Lines and veils are
before.
Yeah. lines and veils would be pre-game, though you can also use them in-game, or like
that was my question.
Where people can be like line, or they'll just say veil, or
Gotcha.
I mean, you could also just be like, can we fade to black? Like,
Gotcha.
The idea is to be as like quick and get out of the way as fast as possible. Like safety tools aren't here to ruin your game. They're just here to make the game better. And so, you just want to be able to like tap an X card or say line or veil and like be able to move on. Everyone knows what that means and keep the game going.
Right. Because that was because that was my question, because X card's good for in-game, but from what you were saying, I wasn't sure how you would implement it. Like, it's great to have the basis of what you should do, but if something comes up in game that maybe you don't know about, I'm glad to see that, thank you for the clarification on that.
Yeah. And lines and veils, at least like how it's worked in my games, like it works okay, but also sometimes like people just don't think about things like ahead of time. Like we were playing a game and the topic of Harry Potter came up, and that was a line for someone just because they were transitioning and the author of that series has it's turfed. And so like that was kind of, like they didn't tell me ahead of time. So then, that's just something that you learn as you're playing. And so, it's not a perfect system to ask people ahead of time. But generally, if people have like arachnophobia and like it's incredibly like severe, like they know to at least let me know so that I can make sure I can transform any dire spiders they're about to meet into like dire rats that happen to also shoot webs. Who knows? Are
their butts? Yeah.
Yeah. These are actually strap bears, and they hang from the ceiling of the caverns and they drop on your head. They're definitely not spiders. And so
that sounds worse. Okay.
Terraphobia is spiders, not drop bears.
Great.
Yeah. And so
it's like, what are you scared of? Clown snakes? Now I'm scared of clown snakes. Great. Anyways, continue. Sorry.
Yeah. And so, like it's just a handy tool. And I know some people kind of like look at this and they're like, this is silly. It's a game. It's not real. It's all make believe. But the idea behind them is not to reduce the fun at your game, but to improve it, because when everyone's having fun, you're running a successful table. It's not just one person's fun shouldn't outweigh everyone else's fun at the table, because this is a group activity. This is a group of people all agreeing to play make-believe together. And if one person's fun is causing, unpleasant feelings or triggering other people or causing like undesirable behaviors when you're trying to enjoy yourself during the few hours you have of leisure time, like, then that's no good. Like that defeats the purpose of us playing this game or playing any role-playing game.
Okay. So I'm assuming that based on what you're saying, that you're a proponent of not only XCard, but other systems. I mean, your feelings are pretty positive towards it.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I like safety tools. I like people feeling welcomed and included at my table. I don't want anyone to like go up to an organizer and be like, can we move him? He's kind of the worst. He is my least favorite person I've ever met in the world. Like, I don't want people to have that opinion of me.
Yeah. Well, are you talking about me?
Of course not.
So
I would never tell an organizer to kick you out.
You would just say it to my face and kick me out.
Yeah.
Great. So yeah, I think you hit on a good point, which was it's useful for new groups. You were starting in a new group where I wasn't invited of people that you're playing with, or you're at a con and it's obviously random strangers that are coming to your game, unless someone buys a ticket that you happen to be running Dumpstat with and sits down at the table and hasn't told you. But anyways, something to look forward to. But it's also, you can use it with people that you've been playing for a long time with, because talking to some people, there was a situation where a game I was involved in, and we had come up against a subject that par for the course for us for some of the dumb things that we do. And we were just rolling with it. It was basically a torture scene. We were trying to get information out, and we had decided for some reason not to be nice that time, and we're deciding to roll intimidation and use instead of persuasion. And when that didn't work, we were just beating him to a pulp. Didn't realize that that was really upsetting to somebody at the table who I've known for 5 years. Now, nothing was said at the time. It was brought to the attention. We moved on to the GM. Moved on once they were realized. Oh, wait a second. Yeah, we need to keep going, which was good. But I felt bad. It was one of those things of talking to the person. It was like, yeah, I wish we had that to be able to move forward. My first question was, oh my God, why didn't you feel comfortable saying anything? Yeah, that's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
You may know somebody, you may know them for a long time, but you don't know everything about them. And it probably would have been a great thing for them to, be able to just tap the card and everyone's just like, cool. And we're all friends well enough that we would just move on. That person wanted to share the information with us later. Fantastic. If they didn't, fantastic. That's up to them. But it made me realize, listening to that, and you had said this too, which was a good point. You don't know what's going on in everybody's head. You don't. I don't know thank God I don't know what's going on in your head. I thank the universe every day for that. But
it's just a bear whistling as it's like slowly mauling characters apart. Maybe an owlbear actually whistling as it's mauling characters. That's all.
Did you ever see that Simpsons where they're like, I wonder what's going on in his brain, and it's Homer and it's just the monkey clapping the cymbals? Yeah, that's me.
I don't watch The Simpsons because I'm a horrible person.
Yeah. So it made me realize that not only is something like sorry, I had to tap the table. It made me realize that look at that mean face. You're angry about that. Made me realize that it actually is an incredibly useful tool, because even if you're like, oh yeah, we're great friends, doesn't mean you know everything about them. And it would be, you'd never want to have your friends be put in an uncomfortable spot, right?
Yeah. And I mean, even just like friends, I would never want to put you in an uncomfortable spot, whoever you are. And even like my spouse, I don't know everything that might cause them discomfort. I don't know everything that would, I hopefully know major things, but there might be minor things, or maybe it's just how it's feeling that day. That's just, for whatever reason, it hits differently. And so it doesn't have to be a constant trigger. If you're just really not in the mood for puppy kicking, that's completely fair. We're all here to relax, enjoy. Escapism is an important element of role-playing games. And so, you want to be inclusive. You want to bring joy. I want people to leave my table feeling good about the experience, and that the time that they're trusting me with was a good use, that they were able to, they would willingly sit at the table with me again because they know it's going to be a most excellent of time.
Okay. So, all right. So we both agree that it's a very positive thing. It's something that brings a lot of probably positive benefits to the table. While I was researching the X card, of course, I had to, go on to the internet and read things.
Chris, I strongly disagree. Anyone going on the internet and reading comments.
So, and since it came out in 2013, there's what? I don't know, over 10 years of things that people have said.
That is generally how time works.
Oh, so, there were a lot of articles written about it, especially when it first came out. I'd say 90% of them positive on hey, this is a great thing that, in a way, we're shocked this hasn't been introduced before. It's something positive. Let's move forward with it. And then I went to Reddit and Twitter, and I was sad. So without going down the rabbit hole too deep, I wanted to take a few minutes and discuss some of the things that we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's definitely a lot of people that have very strong negative feelings towards it, and I think it's coming from a place of them seeing the tool as something to be used against them instead of something to be used for them. And I, going into that, I just want to put that, like, this tool isn't to be used against someone. You're not supposed to, like, every time someone tries to do something, you do an X card because you're upset with them or because you're like trying to teach them a lesson or something like that. Like, that's abusing a safety tool. And so, like, I think a lot of people, maybe when they first hear it, their gut reaction is, oh, this will be used against me.
Right. No, and that's a great point. Yeah, no, that's actually one of the first things you learn in recovery, is that people don't do things to you; they do things for themselves. Unless it's Steven. Steven does things to me.
I spend my entire week thinking what I can do to Chris.
Yeah,
that's all.
And I think that's a really good point. Now, and don't get me wrong, there was a lot of positive feedback that I read too. I mean, there was everything, from, hey, this is a great tool. It's a safety net that wasn't there before for us, in game, before game, so on and so forth. We've always had an unwritten rule of how to, take other people's feelings into considerations, unless the person's name is Steven and the person whose feelings being considered is Chris. But now there's actually a set of rules saying, hey, here we go. Here's how you need to be conscious of what other people at the table feel. So, there's been a lot of positive feedback from a lot of different sources. The problem, and I think you said it, is that there was a lot of negative feedback too. And yes, that was the driving force behind a lot of it, at least in the beginning, was just like, this is going to ruin my fun, right? I mean, how does it ruin your fun? By making sure someone else is having fun?
Make horrible jokes about things. It definitely comes from definitely a certain side of the political system, as it were, because it has been politicized, because everything in this day and age gets to be politicized. And so, there's a lot of discontent around, like, people just need to, like, buck up. Like, the world doesn't revolve around you. You're feeling like, just be stronger. Don't be so sensitive to things. And there's definitely that negativity to it.
And also, if you call me a bitch, I'm going to kill you.
I would never, Xer. And so I think there's that negativity to it. There's also the negativity of, I know my table. Why do I have to use this? And, like, that's great.
Yeah.
Your table, you're not required to use this. Like, that, the thing, it was designed by someone who ran a lot of convention style games. Like, I think, like, the best use for it is, like, when you're first learning a table and you use the X card to make sure everyone feels comfortable at the beginning. Because, I mean, when you first start a table, everyone feels awkward. Like, there are some people who, like, immediately jump into a character. Other people, it might take them a year before they're comfortable role playing around other people. And so,
oh yeah.
And so, like, this is just one tool just to make sure people feel like they're spending their time wisely at your table, because it is so much easier to do anything else than to, like, schedule a game, play in a game for hours. Like, it's easier to not do something than it is to do something. And so you want to make sure that people are feeling like it is worth them being here and things of that nature.
Yeah, no, and I get that. And it's, I'll be the first to admit that when I was reading about it, I was like, oh, this is good. And I wrote about this week. I was like, this makes a lot of sense. I was like, I'm actually surprised someone thought of this back in 2013. I didn't think people, like, were actually cognizant of other people's feelings back that long ago. but it was, and we've talked about this. I was reading through it, and I got down to the triggers can be anything. And I saw a lot on this when I was online, and I was just like, oh, people are horrible, because I at least had the time to stop and talk to somebody about it and process what I was reading and thinking. And it was just like, okay, I didn't take these things into consideration in my first snapshot of 30 seconds of looking at this, where some people have clung on to it for years. Because I'm looking at
knee-jerk reactions to triggers.
Right.
Maybe they're triggered by the triggers, as it were.
Yeah, and it's funny because the word trigger, anything can be triggers. 2013, trigger wasn't a keyword yet out in society. So that I found that first interesting. I was like, maybe this guy started that whole thing. I don't like the word trigger. I hate the word trigger, not because there's anything wrong with it. I think that it sums up exactly what happens in those situations. I just think it's been overused at this point, so it's lost its meaning, and in fact, it could be used against somebody in a negative sense. So it's just like I don't like it for that reason, because it's been so twisted. But when I first looked at this, I'm looking at the list now, and I was just like, okay, how am I supposed to play a game that someone's going to be triggered with chaos or violence, or I guess this says kind of what my games are like, corpses, and I was just like, okay, but that's my game. And I was just like, and then the other half of me is like, why would anybody bring up things like bigotry in the game, or make homophobic comments or things like that? I'm like, how could people even think that was the right thing to do? So I was just like, this list is ridiculous. And I'm like, no, and I talked to actually you about it, and you made the comment, how do you know what everybody else is thinking? How do you know what everybody else's experiences are? And I was like, God damn it, I hate it when you're right.
Yeah.
So,
and also, I mean, you mentioned corpses, and there's also blood, from people who've only played D&D, you might be like, well, obviously combat is the main way that you figure out, who's right. I mean, D&D definitely has the ethos of whoever's strongest is right. Might makes right.
Yeah, especially early editions.
Yeah, but then I mean, there's also really kind of neat little RPGs. Monster Care Squad is one of the later ones that I've heard, where basically you're going around and you're actually trying to help monsters. They're sick, and so you're playing basically doctors and nurses, and you're trying to destroy the sickness that the monster is having, or some sort of plague that's happening to them. And so the idea that you would
play veterinarian,
yeah, basically you're playing as monster veterinarians for these epic beasts. And so if you were killing people, you're playing that game wrong. You're supposed to be helping people. And so there's all manner of RPGs that doesn't fit the D&D mindset of, well, if I can punch it, that means I'm right.
Well, inclination would be yes, but that's because I play primarily D&D and some Pathfinder. But and some of these, and again, I had to stop and process it. Some of these, I'm like, this is ridiculous, and that's the wrong way. I'll say right off the bat, that's the wrong way to think of this, because I'm, eating in front of others. I apologize to everybody that sits at the table with me, because I do eat. I know it's just a gross thing to watch at, but I'm going to fucking eat at the table. I don't care. Really, that's a really good self-centered attitude to look at it.
Yeah. And I would say, yeah, the list of triggers is more of it could be anything. Don't be surprised if this ends up being something that maybe you didn't even realize someone could be affected by. So yeah, and I think too many people might look at that list of triggers and be like, well, how the hell am I supposed to play a game? And it's well,
well, and that's the thing too. People would argue, it's the way the world works. People would argue that it was just sort of oh, you know what? Look at all these things. Look at all the limits that have been put on me when I'm trying to play a game. I can't have fun with this. I've just got to tiptoe around everything now because people are so sensitive. A lot of sensitive word was used in a lot of Reddit threads, and I don't want to even get into Twitter, and I refuse to call it X because that's just stupid.
Well, you just did.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Checkmate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and
it
really,
was just like, I don't know. People are horrible sometimes.
Yeah. And yeah, and like the X card, like it gives a list of triggers, but it's not saying like you can't talk about corpses. It's just saying that might be, someone you play with might have that type of trigger. And so, like it's just giving you examples. And it does make me think of, like everyone knows the golden rule, which is treat others as you wish to be treated. There is a platinum rule that I really like, which I read about in, I think, the Bobaverse series. But basically it's treat others as they wish to be treated, which, makes so much more sense. Like not everyone wants to be treated the way you want to be treated. Like maybe you actually like it when I call you a big dum-dum, but that doesn't mean everyone else likes to be called big dum-dum. And so like the idea is like, you want to be able to treat other people as they wish to be treated, which means don't call them big dum-dums just because you like it. Call them by what they want to be called, things of that nature. And so, like, yeah, that gets into the like big words I probably won't say. Like, like people can be like, well, it's taking safety too far. It's taking, like, well, what's the point of even going out in society when I have to tiptoe around all these people's feelings? And it's just, like, just think of how the other person wants to be treated. Think about how you want to be treated, and like, just be more aware of other people. Like this, to live in a society, we have to operate correctly within a society, Chris. And I think we might be getting too deep onto into
so
the weeds.
Can I sum up? Don't be a dick.
Yeah, go for it.
I mean,
don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick.
That's the uber platinum rule. Don't be a dick.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. The first thing that came to my mind was, I was like, yeah, so don't be a dick. Okay, I got to work on that one. And I mean, I think the other thing that's important to say right now is I get a lot of things wrong.
What?
So I'm listening to I'm listening to you, and I'm trying to listen to myself, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? We all get things wrong. So, if I say something on here that might offend somebody, I could be wrong. That could be, I mean, your opinion is valid to you. My opinion is valid to me, but I am not going to go out of my way to hurt anybody. One of the things I've learned after a long life is that, don't be a dick. Just try and be nice to people. And this helps you be nice to people. Yeah. Even if it's not a direct way of doing it, don't be a Richard.
Yeah, Katie's right. Don't be a Richard. We're not allowed to say dick so many times.
Gotcha. One of the other things I thought was interesting when I was doing the research on it from someone that looked at it in a negative way was from a game creator. His name was Vincent Baker, and this was way back when it first came out. And I think he knew of John Sojopoulos. I'm not even.
Wow, you got it. One go.
Yeah, and his his comment was, his direct comment was, X-Card was unnecessarily and harmful to the game. Let's see. Let me get the exact one. Was an unnecessary or harmful game hack counter to the intentions of the game designer, as competent game designers would be deliberate including or excluding emotional safety mechanisms. He was a game designer, obviously. Basically saying if you weren't smart enough not to talk about Nazis when you were playing a game, that that people might be upset about it, then yeah, you the game designer are an idiot. Now, he has since done a 360 on that and came out a couple years later with a quote saying, "My take now is that a standalone safety tools that players can bring with them from game to game are valuable and important." So that's good. So, he took some time, listened to some feedback, you hope, and was able to come around to thinking that it was a good idea for whatever reason. It doesn't make a difference what reason he came up with. It doesn't, if it was pressure, social pressure, if it was he actually thought about it and processed himself, it was his wife beat him over the head with it when he got home for making such a dumbass comment. Whatever it was, it's good to see that he changed his views on it moving forward and it looked at this in a positive way. But that was something that I was interesting, that it was being almost attacked from that level, not just some troll on the internet going, "Oh, you're stupid."
Yeah.
So,
Well, I don't know. This might get to like more like my personal philosophy, but like I look back at myself 3 years ago, 3 months ago, 3 weeks ago. I'm like, what an idiot. And I think like if you can't look
I say that all
back,
the time
well, you say
about
it
you, not
all the
me.
time. That's probably why I think it so much. But like, if you can't look back at like your previous self and you agree with 100% of what you said back then, you agree 100% on every action you ever took, like you're not growing as a person at that point. Like you're not improving. You're getting more knowledge about situations. But if your reaction is, "I was right all along. I've always been right," like that's not good. You're not growing as a person. You're stagnating as a person. And so when you can look back and be like, I said this one thing, but based off of new experiences, new knowledge, I realized that maybe I was wrong about this thing. And, like this can be helpful. And I'm not even just talking about the X card. I mean, this could be about in your career. This could be personal connections with friendships. Like there are friends I'm like, I have no idea why I was friends with them. That was not the people I want to hang out with. And I'm definitely not talking about Chris in this context.
Is that why you moved? That's why you moved, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm sorry I had to break it to you like this. And so, like, if you agree 100% with what you thought of years and years ago, like, you need to like reevaluate and grow. And I think, like that's great for him. I'm glad that, like he has a difference of opinions years later. And I don't think that we should hold people's previous opinions like strictly against them if they have come out and like, I have learned something new, experiences taught me something else. Like, we should all be growing and as people and not stagnating.
Yeah. And it's funny because people try to do that nowadays and they're like, "Oh, well, you're just doing this because you got yelled at a lot, or you were, it was hitting you in the pocketbook, if you're if you're a streamer, let's say." And it's just like, you know what? That could be the reason, but can we stop giving people the benefit of the doubt that they've actually learned from, their own experiences? I don't know. The last thing I want to say from a con aspect of this that I read a lot about, which was fascinating to me, was that there were more than one or two people that were saying that the X card prevents good and meaningful discussion at the table. And I was just like, what?
What?
So I don't.
Yeah.
I was like, how? Because
my knee-jerk reaction to that, and I'm cutting into you, but like basically it's like good and healthy discussion at the table. Like they just want people to like explain themselves because they're like innately curious, and that's looking at it on like a positive side. On the negative side is they just want to badger people and tell them like, "Oh, it's not a big deal, stop thinking it," and like not really caring how that other person feels about something. They just want to like make people feel bad. And that's coming from a negative point on that side.
I don't even know if they're some people aren't even conscious that they're trying to make people feel bad. Like you said, it's that curiosity, and they just keep poking and poking because sometimes they're just like, "Well, why won't you tell me? This is for me. I'm doing this for me, not for you." And they don't. There's a breakdown in the process of why they even realize they're doing it. And preventing good and meaningful discussion means that both parties want to talk about it. I mean, if one of the parties doesn't want to talk about something, then it's not going to be good and meaningful discussion. It's going to be really bad for somebody. I mean, there are things. I'll use myself as an example. Everybody at my table knows that of my issues. I am a living cautionary tale. I am quite open about my my addiction issues, what I've been doing in recovery, and I don't mind sharing that. I actually look at it as if I can share that with somebody, if I can be open and honest with, the issues I've had with alcohol, the issues I've had with drugs over decades, and the things I'm doing right now that have helped me with that over the last 10 years, that maybe I can help somebody else. That's how I look at it. That doesn't mean that someone who's gone through similar experiences that I have feels the same way. I know plenty of people that are just like, nope, it's a private thing. I will talk to a group of people that are like me in that setting, and I feel super comfortable with that. But once I get out of here, I don't want people knowing. Cool. That's works for them. Who am I to say that? And who am I to force them to talk about it outside of a situation? So if I'm playing in a game and we start, the town drunk comes up, who turns out to be an evil assassin and tries to kill us, because Steven never tries to kill us in our campaigns. But
no one said that was a trigger for them.
Yeah, it wouldn't be for me, but it could be for somebody else. You know, that could be a trigger for somebody else. Doesn't mean they have to talk about it. They have an X card in front of them, they can tap the card. End of story. You move on. They want to talk about it one-on-one afterwards. They want to tell the group afterwards, well, hey guys, this is what made me feel uncomfortable. Great. That's when they can have a meaningful discussion. They want to get up and walk away and not share it with anybody. Great. Their prerogative. They're allowed to do that. So reading that was just like, are you fucking kidding me? Sorry, Alex said we were an R-rated live stream now, so I can get away with it.
I don't think YouTube would agree with that.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
So it can bring up some positive discussion amongst friends, but preventing it, that is such an ignorant way of looking at it, in my opinion. That is a self-centered way of looking at it, just to satisfy your own curiosity.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well,
we're running out of. We got about 10 minutes. So I have something to complain about for a couple of minutes.
Yeah. Well, Steven, this is. Let me tell people before you start. Like when we were drawing up I was drawing up a format for this. Let's say instead of a stream of consciousness, it came to my attention that Steven should have a 5-minute time to just speak without Chris opening his mouth, which would be very hard, I'll admit, and let him rant. So this is the Steven rant section of the No Int live stream. Go for it.
We're going to see how many things I have to rant about. But
you got 5 minutes, and I'm starting a timer.
Okay. Well, if anyone has any questions about what we talked about or what I'm about to rant about, then feel free to leave it, and we'll address anything before we close out. But basically, I want to rant about sneak attack. And there is a common problem I see on forums and mostly Reddit, where people talk about how their game master has made sneak attack only work if you're actually sneaking, or if you're hidden, or it never works because they're not stealthing or whatever. And I see too many people nerfing sneak attack, maybe reducing how much damage it does or how it actually functions and things of that nature. And it just drives me insane that people take the flavor of something and directly apply it to the mechanics, thinking sneak attack means you have to be sneaky when you attack in order to get this damage, instead of reading the text, which says you have to be the creature has to be unaware of you, or you have to be flanking with or adjacent to an ally within 5 feet, or any other number of ways that specifies how to get sneak attack in. And so my rant basically is, stop letting flavor figure out the mechanics for you. Look at the actual mechanics that are written there, that were balanced for, and ignore the flavor. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're not sneaking. If you have an ally adjacent next to the creature, you get your sneak attack. It doesn't matter if you're screaming as loud as you can when you are attacking this creature. If you were hidden and they were unaware of you, you get your sneak attack. Just because you started screaming an instant before, there's no reason why that flavor should be negatively impacting your mechanical actions. And you can easily adjust, oh, he's yelling. Obviously, they're going to be startled by that when he makes the attack. you should still get your sneak attack in there. And that goes for a couple of other things. Like, oh, a barbarian's raging. That means that they're just going to keep bloodthirstily attacking anyone around them. And I've seen some people talk about how, like if they're raging, they have to make like a wisdom save in order to stop raging. Or for the duration of rage, a minute, like they're just randomly attacking their allies until they can calm down. Like, no, that's not fun. That's not interesting. That's not making the game more exciting at the table. That's just dumb. And you are putting way too much emphasis on the flavor of something than the mechanics. And that's why, you should feel free to just adjust flavor as you want and just focus on like the mechanics on how to resolve certain things. I'm sure in under 5 minutes, but there you go. Yep. That's me complaining about people just in general. I just don't like people, I guess.
You got to keep talking for 2 more minutes. No, I'm kidding.
That's fine. Katie said, you touched on the topic of not being comfortable role-playing with others at the table. What's an opinion on using improv warm-up tools to help everyone feel comfortable? I don't know how much experience you have with improv warm-up tools, Chris.
None.
Okay. I don't have a ton of experience on improv warm-up tools. I know about them and like kind of like the general way that they're used.
What are they?
I don't know.
I don't know.
But basically, like you can either like set like small little scenes. You can do. I've heard like some people will do like kind of like small scenes just between like 2 players will like kind of like warm themselves up, describing how their character acts, things of that nature, kind of getting themselves in like the mindset. Other people have like a soundtrack that they listen to, like to like get them in the mood, things of that nature. I think, like warm-up tools are cool. If I have time, like I've done before, like, oh, we'll play like 5-minute dungeon or like some other like card game just to like get people ready to play games. I think that's also important for like board games. If you're about to sit down and play something crunchy, it's kind of nice to play something super light, super quick to just like get yourself going, get your brain going. And I mean, maybe this is a topic that we can talk about in the future about different ways to do warm-ups for improv. Chris, you have to write that down since you're the secretary.
I am actually going to go put that down somewhere here.
Oh.
Okay.
Alex asked, why are DMs so particular about issues like that to deny the class fantasy of a player? I don't know why sub DMs are the way they are. They're just
Alex, don't you don't have to sugarcoat it. Steven, why are you like this?
Some people just get so caught up in the flavor of an ability, or like they have a very specific way that they see how actions are supposed to be taken that like they get blinded by it, or they're so focused on like you have to do fun the right way that they're not particularly paying attention to how like the rest of the table feels. And then other people just trip off of the power. And I have no idea what power tripping would be like as a forever GM. I am always in tune with the rest of my table.
Oh God, it's physically hurting me not to say something right now. Anyways, okay.
There are cards. So like Alex pointed out that there are campfire cards. There are also like, I saw one person made a chart where it's like, hey, this incident happened. Like, hey, when was the last time your character was in jail? And it's like, not that you were imprisoned. Maybe you had just showed up there to visit someone in prison. And so like, there are those like type questions to kind of get you into the mindset.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on, Chris. Also, Alex called you a mummy boss, I'm pretty sure. Because you look like, old, decrepit, cop.
Pretty sure he's talking.
Dust.
Pretty sure we're talking about something we had to fight. Or they had to fight, because I don't think I'm in that campaign. All right. Well, Steven, before we go, the one other thing I wanted to mention was, and we'll make Steven put this in somewhere where people can find it.
No.
Is that there are a variety of other tools. I mean, we touched on Xcard. We touched on
Lines and Veils.
Sorry, being old sucks. I guess you TPK'd some people last week, Stephen, and they're not very happy about it.
It was a couple of weeks ago.
Go ahead, blame them, and you always blame the players. I see how it is.
Yeah,
but anyways,
they should have played better.
Jeez.
Roll the dice better, and
Look,
you won't die.
I feel like people forget when I'm not at the table that running away is perfectly acceptable. Not that my characters are cowards, but that, possibly that, it's beneficial not to die.
I'm pretty sure if I was in D&D, I'd be a coward and run away from even a kobold.
If you were went on the funhouse ride and were magically transported to a D&D world with a little guy.
Yeah, like that D&D cartoon from the 80s. Like I would, if I got sucked into D&D world, I would be running. And also, to be fair, the first creature that party fights is basically Tiamat. And so I guess everything else after Tiamat is kind of easy to fight. So maybe that's why they didn't run away from everything.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. But, they had to draw a bunch of kids into the show. Myself, I was one of them. So, yeah, kind of worked. But, yeah, what else? What could you be scared of after that battle? Probably nothing. Vecna. I wouldn't want to fight Vecna. I'd run away from Vecna.
I wouldn't want to fight a kobold.
I think you'd go into the game and be a kobold. There's some, there'd be some universal.
I mean, if I got to pick to be a kobold, why wouldn't I be a dragon?
Oh God, that's a story for another day with you, kobolds and dragons.
That'll be our topic.
Anyways,
just about kobolds and how great they are as dragons.
Yeah, so Stephen will put a list of some of the other resources that you can use to implement in your game as safety tools. We will not be here. We will not live stream next weekend because Stephen's got something to do.
Chris, you're wrong. I will be here the next weekend. It's the following weekend, the 4th of February. You're bad at things.
I better check my schedule to make sure that I'll be here because I was not going to tell you that I was going somewhere. So yeah, it might.
Well, we'll find out whether there's a live stream or not next week.
There is.
Okay.
There is my daughter that's on. And then, but the following week is
so February 4th, and then for February whatever after that. No.
Yep.
All right, Chris.
Will, Stephen doesn't want to live stream from a boat. Let's just put it that way. Anyways, good talking to you, Stephen. And thank you for discussing the topic with me. It's kind of a sensitive one, but I think it worked out well.